The DCEU is dead. Long live the DCU. James Gunn has released an announcement as co-CEO of DC Studios under Warner Bros., and I wanted to talk about it. Hey everybody, quick note, as you can all see, I'm totally out of focus. I'm using a new camera, and I hadn't quite figured out how to do the focusing settings yet. I didn't want to re-record the video, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a bunch of B-roll in here, and hopefully you can forgive me. Thanks. Essentially what his announcement was about was that there is a 8 to 10 year plan for Warner Bros. And DC Studios to be making DC movies and TV shows that are interconnected, a la the MCU. And he announced basically what the plan was going forward and announced some titles. The first part of the announcement is about wrapping up the current projects, i.e. the Snyderverse stuff. So we've got Shazam! Fury of the Gods, which looks...
The wizard gave me superpowers, and then everybody got superpowers.
The power of the god. Give us the powers.
You want these powers?
Powers like this.
Take my powers back.
bad, but the first one beat out my expectations, so maybe it will be good. We've got The Flash, which is adapting Flashpoint and has Michael Keaton's Batman and all kinds of crazy stuff in it. Who knows? That's meant to be the timeline reset for the DC stuff, end the Snyderverse what have yous, and move on to the James Gunn stuff. But we do have two holdover projects from that phase of things. Blue Beetle, which is great, a fantastic idea for an adaptation. I think Blue Beetle is one of those characters I knew nothing about, and then I watched Young Justice Season 2, which is so good. Not that it's a bad show around that. It's good, but Season 2 is excellent, and Blue Beetle is a major part of Season 2. Blue Beetle's great, so I am legitimately interested in that project. And then the last one is Aquaman 2 with Jason Momoa, who even knows what that will look like or what will come of that. And then we have the first chapter, rather than phase, of the DCU, which is called Gods and Monsters. It's starting off with a series called Creature Commandos, which has been written by James Gunn. It's an animated series that looks like it's got a bunch of wild and zany characters in it. I am interested in this because James Gunn is great. I really did enjoy The Suicide Squad, and I have heard really good things about Peacemaker. I haven't seen Peacemaker myself, but I hear that it's excellent. Next up, they got Waller. Waller is a TV show centered around Viola Davis, and it's got characters from the Peacemaker show. I wouldn't be surprised if some of the characters from the Suicide Squad or from a version of the Suicide Squad ended up in there as well, just because that's where that character is from. So it's interesting because they are keeping the best things about some aspects of the DCU and making them more James Gunny, which I don't think is a bad thing at all. I think that's a good way of doing it. Then there will be a new Superman movie, not with Henry Cavill. It's called Superman Legacy. It's also being written by James Gunn. We're gonna have to see what comes of this one. It's a younger version of Clark Kent earlier on in his career. They're doing their, timeline reset thing, so they want to go with somebody probably younger who can carry forward for a longer period of time, I guess. Yeah, I would love to get a good Superman movie, and James Gunn can make good movies, so I hope that James Gunn makes a good Superman movie. I don't know what else to say about this announcement. It also seems like there are going to be a few shows that are being produced in collaboration with HBO. The first of which is Lanterns, which is their new Green Lanterns project. It sounds like their previous Green Lantern Corps movie project has been scrapped. I don't know what happened to that. I'm sure we'll hear more in the future. Both Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart are going to be in it. It's being pitched as a True Detectives type show, but set on Earth with a couple of lanterns, which is a fun idea for a show about space cops with their own jurisdictions. It's like, yeah, these are the space cops of Earth, and that's meant to tie into their bigger narrative that they're having. So, we'll have to see. HBO can make some good shows when they want to. It'll definitely have the budget to look like a Green Lantern show, so that's good. Then there's a project, a movie that they are making called The Authority. I know absolutely nothing about this. I know exactly this amount. That is the amount that I know. They're also making a Paradise Lost TV show. A TV show about Themyscira, where Wonder Woman is from. Apparently it's going to be Game of Thrones, but with the ladies from Themyscira. Is that something you want? I mean, Game of Thrones with Amazonian women does sound badass. Like, if you think about all of the, like, badass women in Game of Thrones, and them just doing more Game of Thronesing stuff, but as Amazonians, I actually might be on board with that show. Next is going to be their Batman movie called Brave and the Bold, which is going to be a new Batman, presumably a new Batman actor, new Batman movie, which is about his relationship with Damian Wayne, the third Robin, his biological son, who was raised by assassins. If they do it right, and they get that God of War PS4 energy of father trying to corral his violent son, that God of War PS4 is good. So if they do that, I'm down. They're also doing an HBO Max Booster Gold TV series. Booster Gold is one of these, like, meme characters who's a loser from the future, but he has time travel and technology, so he comes back to the past so that people will adore him. There have been a few versions of this character. I know he's shown up in some animated stuff, and he was in Smallville, so my cousins tell me. I know very little about the character, but they're making a show about him. They're making a Supergirl movie, Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, I believe it's called, and it's supposed to be really dark and show some of the horrible stuff that Supergirl has seen, the destruction of Krypton, the squalid poverty of people's lives as they live on a shell of that planet afterwards. It sounds rough. And then they're making a Swamp Thing movie, because there will always be a Swamp Thing in development or happening and then getting canceled or something. Always. It's inevitable. It's the way of the world. Swamp Thing is meant to be a horror movie, and it's also meant to be both completely separate from the rest of the stuff that they're doing, but also tying into it also. So there's some cake there, and they're gonna have it and eat it too, if that movie gets made, which I'm not convinced it will. So what do I think about all of this? I feel like the DCEU was just getting comfortable in this position of not being the MCU, just being a collection of Elseworlds and stories that weren't necessarily connected, but could be if they wanted them to be. And there was a really fun space. It was like, oh yeah, you know, if DC come out with a thing and it is good, then great. We can support it and watch it. And if not, like Black Adam, I didn't go see that because I had no interest. I don't feel like I've missed out on anything in that grand narrative. Wonderful. And with so many things trying to be an MCU and the MCU trying way too hard to be an MCU right now, it was nice. It was like a nice space that they'd found. And now they are MCU-ifying themselves again. But it's a James Gunn MCU. And James Gunn is a good writer and a good creative. So it could be good. And it looks like they're doing it with, like, weird characters as well. It's like, it's not... There are some, like, the mainstream ones, but they're also, like, the Authority. I have no idea what their whole deal is. And, you know, Commandos and Waller and all of these characters, it feels very... Doors. It feels very much like it's its own thing. So, yeah, I'm not quite sure what to make of it yet. So, wrapping up, am I excited after James Gunn's announcement? I'm excited for the DCU. No. Each of these is going to have to prove itself on its own merits, just like they were doing before. Peace.